Greetings, my fellow freedom loving sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3-Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Saturday, June 28th, 2025. This is episode 1852. Rhode Island's assault weapons ban and its big 2A history. Before I proceed, you can find me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Looky Luck number 3, Looky Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or the Looky Luck Roman number 3 podcast. Furthermore, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, and all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to LL3, the number 3 to be exact, .podcast@proton.me. Or if you're going to donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/Looky Luck number 3. If you're going to give me a little crypto love, follow there at Steemit at LL number 3-podcast. Yeah, so last week I did a live feed about U.S. attacking Iran. I didn't really put it on the republished archives, but you can find it in the live feed. So if you want to hear it, go ahead. I didn't go too bonkers, but I did have my views on it in good faith. It was pretty brief. And some people actually listened, and I thank them for that. Hopefully they follow me too and spread the information. And I know, same old song and dance, right? You got that one gentleman, what's his name? Zoran Madani. I call him Mr. Ilhan Omar. At your service. It's only the primaries, folks, and I find it really interesting. It's like under 1 million people did a voter turnout there in New York City. I'm going to have to do a little homework. And how many registered voters they have in the Big Apple? So it's just the general election. It would want to be the big key. And if he gets in, the 5 boroughs can still tell him where to go. Do the nullification. It's in the New York Constitution. Article 1, Section 14 on common law. And it's still relevant today with the New York State Constitution of 1777, which was ratified at Kingston, New York. That's in the Mid-Hudson Valley area if you're not familiar with that state. So always look at those areas. Just type in New York State Constitution of 1777, there's a New York Historical Society website. You find it there. So it's good to know these things. And of course, New York City does have a Patriot resolution as well. You can utilize against his agenda. You know what I'm saying? And if he wants to defund the police, the other boroughs to have more autonomous control on public safety. So that's just my observation. You can tell this guy where to go and ask him, are you Mr. Ilhan Omar? And is Idi Amin your Lord and Savior? And I digress. Well, enough of that for the time being, but it's just so much hectic worldwide. I'm going to focus on what's happening in the state of Rhode Island. So on the Twitter page, and I decided to look at the governor's website. Governor Dan McKee says here, Governor McKee signs bill banning the sale of assault weapons. You like to use that lingo, assault weapons. Like he's going to attack you automatically, right? Published on Thursday, June 26, 2025. As it reads here, today, Governor Dan McKee signed legislation that bans the sale of certain military-style weapons in Rhode Island. The legislation was sponsored by Senator Louis P. Del Palma, District 12 of Middletown, Little Compton, Newport, Teverton, Representative Jason Knight, Democrat, District 67. Barron Warren sponsored companion legislation in the House. The governor is joined for the signing by Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos, General Treasurer James Diosa, House Speaker K. Joseph Shikarki, Senate President Valerie Lawson, Representative Knight, Senator De Palma, Executive Director of Moms Demand Action Angela Farrell Zabala, and Executive Director of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, Melissa Cardin. Yay! Faction slaves unite! Woohoo! Telling you how to think and wipe your own butt? Yeah. Plunder, baby. Plunder. The plundering team, right? Team Plunder. Today we're delivering progress on the work to keep our children, families, and communities safe from gun violence, said Governor Dan McKee. This law builds on an important momentum we've created over the last few years, is a testament to the dedication for our advocates, legislators, and many Rhode Islanders who stood up for a safer state. This day and age, kissing up to the state's patriotic. I'll continue on. The law, 2025, Senate Bill 359A, good grief, bans the manufacture, purchase, sale, or transfer of military-style weapons, including certain types of semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. Turn that off. Good. The law allows lawful owners to possess these firearms and allow lawful owners to sell their firearms to federally licensed dealers or individuals outside the state who can lawfully possess them. Violations are punishable by up to 10 years in prison, a $10,000 fine, and firearm forfeiture. The law goes into effect on July 1st, 2026. All right. To sell the lawful owners to sell their fire. Yeah. And allow law. Yep. Good grief. Lawful owners, right? I'll continue on. With the laws on the books, families can rest easier knowing that we've slowed the spread of dangerous weapons of war throughout our communities. This was made possible by thousands of everyday Rhode Islanders making their voices heard and by the diligent work of our legislators to find common good ground on a thorny issue, said Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos. Today is a great day for Rhode Island, where we control the Rhode Islanders like peasants. I'm being sarcastic here, so. Today, as the bill is signed into law, we continue to strengthen Rhode Island's commitment to reducing the risk of gun violence in our state, said Secretary of State Greg M. Amore. I want to extend my sincere appreciation to the many advocates, lawmakers, community leaders, and fellow Rhode Islanders who have dedicated their effort to minimize the presence of assault weapons. What does that mean, assault weapons, right? There's no definition for that, but it's just a magical term, like a widget, a fictional product, right? In our communities, and whose support of this bill supports a safer future for ourselves, our children, and our neighbors. But if the state gets these weapons and used against its people, it is called justice, exceptionalism, sovereign immunity, qualified immunity, too. I'll just leave it at that. Gun violence has impacted every community in some way, and as the former mayor of Central Falls, I've seen its devastating effects firsthand, said Treasurer James A. Diosa. The enactment of this legislation marks a critical step toward protecting our children and ensuring safer futures for all Rhode Islanders. While the work isn't over, today symbolizes real progress in the fight to end the crisis. The ban is the latest piece of gun safety legislation Governor McKee has signed into law. Others include a ban on large-capacity gun magazines, requiring the safe storage of firearms, raising the legal age to purchase firearms and ammunition from 18 to 21, and prohibiting the open carry of any loaded rifle or shotgun in public. What will be next for Rhode Island? Treat people from 18 to 20 as juveniles? Take them to juvenile court? Repeal the 26th Amendment saying registered voter is going to move to 21 now, not 18, because you people are not capable of taking care of yourselves, but it's okay for you to join the service, good enough for you to be treated as an adult, but you can't own firearms until you're 21. Woo! Let's do things backwards, right? In the name of progress. Turn to manure. I am very proud of the common sense gun control legislation sponsored by Representative Jason Knight that the House passed on June 5th to limit the number of military-style assault weapons in our state. However, in the State House, the art of compromise is essential in order to get good things done. The House has recognized what is achievable at the present moment for the greater good of our state, and we have passed the revised legislation. Most Rhode Islanders want to protect the state from the specter of gun violence, and this legislation gets us closer to accomplishing that goal, said House Speaker K. Joseph Shikarchi from Democrat from Warwick, District 23 to be exact. The bill signed into law today has been in years in the making, and it is the product of many months of hard work. Really? How hard was it? It represents the most significant gun safety legislation to ever come before us in the General Assembly, and together we have taken a powerful step to keep weapons of war off our streets and make our community safer. Sounds like a true Marxist, right? Marxonian Institute. I want to thank everyone who took part in the process and made this legislation possible, said Senate President Valerie J. Lawson, District 14 of East Providence. This bill is a result of many, many years of advocacy, work, and collaboration. Polls show that almost 2/3 of Rhode Islanders support banning assault-style weapons in our state. You really sure about that? I don't think so, but I'll continue on. We all know the impact they've had in our country. There are the weapons that have been used to the most lethal mass shootings carried out in the United States, said Senator Louis D. Palma, District 12. The sponsor legislation of Senate Bill 359A. This bill will end the proliferation of these weapons in our state, and as the experience in other states with similar bans has shown, will result significantly fewer of them as time goes on. I am pleased that my colleagues in the General Assembly have supported a bill that, when combined with existing federal law, turn off the spigot of AR-style weapons in Rhode Island and will diminish their numbers as well. And sorry about that. That was my scanner. Sorry about that. My scanner was calling. Brother Radio to be exact. I'll get that later. I don't know what's going on where I'm at. So I'll continue on. And will diminish their numbers as well as gun violence in our state. This bill in the culmination of immense efforts on the part of so many people over the years. And it is the last remaining major recommendation of the gun safety working group formed after the mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. Oh, really? Let me tell you something about Parkland, Florida. Mr. Knight. 1, it was a firearm-free zone. 2, he was an SSRI case. And 3, the police were never obligated to protect the students there. Capiche? And I recommend you start reading the Stoneman Douglas committee report. And it tells you a lot of the fallacies that, at the time, Scott Israel, who was sheriff at the time of the county, and what the school resource officers made claims, but everything was contradicting. Trying to cover their tracks, but it failed. All right, so don't try to compare what happened in Parkland, Florida, because it's nothing more than a bad rhetorical deception. And I digress. These are the weapons of choice for mass shooters because they can inflict maximum death and injury in very little time. And we shouldn't wait for a large-scale tragedy to prohibit their sale in our state, said Representative Jason Knight, District 67, who sponsored companion legislation, House Bill 5436A in the House. These people, so delusional, but I'm going to finish this off in a moment. Be right back. We're deeply grateful to Governor McKee for signing this life-saving bill into law, said Angela Farrell Zabala, Executive Director of Moms Demand Action. This milestone reflects more than a decade of tireless advocacy, grassroots organizing, and a shared commitment to protecting Rhode Island's communities from gun violence. It's a powerful reminder of what's possible when volunteers, lawmakers, and survivors work together to put public safety first. We are so thankful to Governor McKee for kicking off this legislative session, prioritizing the assault weapons ban by including it in his budget. While what ultimately wasn't the path taken, it highlighted this issue and spurred on the action we saw in the General Assembly. The ultimate ban on sales of these weapons is a big achievement and represents forward momentum and progress. We are committed to continuing to work together to make Rhode Island the safest state in the country, says Melissa Carden, Executive Director of RICAGV. Yay! Let's make it safe. Give up your liberty for security. What a pipe dream. This day and age, right? That's the word I like to use. And it's funny, I was reading the bill, Senate Bill 359, talking about the unlawful sale of prohibited firearms, give the whole definitions and all that. The links are on this page, so you can read it for yourselves. And I can tell you one thing, this is nothing more than an invalid contract, period. A rhetorical deception. So, here's another reason why it's invalid. We get hit here on its Declaration of Certain Constitutional Rights and Principles, Article 1 of their state constitution. I love it here, write and make all the constitutional obligatory upon all. In the words of the father of this country, we declare the basis of our political systems is the right of the people to make and alter the constitutions of government, but that constitution at which at any time exists till changed by an explicit and authentic act of the whole people is scarcely obligatory upon all. And it's funny because it's not a constitutional law, okay? This ban. And the laws for good of whole, Section 2. I'm not going to read its entirety, but you can. But since all free governments are instituted for the protection, safety, and happiness of the people, all laws therefore should be made for the good of the whole, and the burdens of the state ought to be fairly distributed among its citizens. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied equal protection of the laws. So we can you can read that for yourselves on Section 2. And we'll just hit what's the next one here. We hit Section 5. I can say this so-called law is involuntary servitude. And I like it here in Section 5, entitlement to remedies for injuries and wrongs, right to justice. Every person within the state ought to find a certain remedy by having recourse to the laws for all injuries or wrongs which may be received in one's person, property, or character. Every person ought to obtain right and justice freely and without purchase, completely and without denial, promptly and without delay, comfortably to the laws. So it's funny about this. The so-called law they have, the impairing contract, can lead to Section 5, right? Remedies to injuries and wrongs. So the whole thing is, of course, null and void, but I'll continue on. We all know about searches and seizures. Okay, so that contradicts that. And let me hit Section 12. Section 12, ex post facto laws, law impairing obligation of contract. No ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts shall be passed. Like I said before, this is an illegal law. It's null and void without force. I'll continue on. Let me just hit the next section here. That will be section 22, right? Section 22 reads, the right to bear arms, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Ah, look at that. See how this law coincides with this? It doesn't. And we hit section 24. Rights not enumerated, state rights not dependent on federal rights. The enumeration of the foregoing rights shall not be construed to impair or deny others retained by the people. The rights guaranteed by this Constitution are not dependent on those guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. So, bingo. The whole thing is this law he signed and the people voted on is once again invalid. And it's funny because they do have, you guys, the state of Rhode Island does have recall, but only for a few people, not entire legislation, because each state's different. And it says here about recall, this is on section 1, election in terms of governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, general treasurer, and general assembly members. And it goes right down here on recall. Recall shall not, however, be. Now, there's a code of ethics, by the way. Recall is authorized in the case of general officer who has been indicted or informed against for a felony, convicted of a misdemeanor, or against of whom finding a probable cause of violation of the code of ethics has been made by the Ethics Commission. Recall shall not, however, be instituted at any time during the first 6 months or the last year of an individual's term of office. So it gives you a whole rundown about recall. You can recall these individuals. That's on Article 4, Section 1. Because I do find this unethical. All right? And to be very honest, I dare call this treason. And I was looking at this, which is on the Rhode Island statutes here. Chapter 43, treason and related offenses. And let's see what Section 1 has to say here. Every person who shall be convicted of treason against this state by levying war against the state or by adhering to his enemy of the state, give them aid and comfort, shall be imprisoned during life. So there's no death penalty in treason in the state of Rhode Island. And right down here is subsection 7. Unlawful exercise of functions of state office. Every person except as duly elected according to the laws of the state who shall assume or exercise any of the legislative, executive, ministerial functions of the office of governor, lieutenant governor, senator, member of the House of Representatives, secretary of state, attorney general, or general treasurer of the state, within the territorial limits of the state, as they are now actually had and enjoyed either separately or with others, or shall assemble with others for the purpose of exercising any of those functions, shall be imprisoned during life. So based on this law that was sponsored, co-sponsored, you even get the lobbyists in this as well for the state of Rhode Island. It is treason, far as I'm concerned. They're putting your state in peril. And that's wrong. Prove to me that the police are obligated to protect you in the state of Rhode Island. Protect these individuals, the people there. I would love to hear from these beakerzoids, all right? And this is why when you got folks out there believing they're smarter than their oath of office, they need to go. They need to go. And a good thing about it, there is nullification folks can use. It's the Rhode Island, there's like 7 municipalities have the Patriot Act resolution, by the way. And it's so cool because, like Bristol, for an example, a resolution of the town of Bristol reaffirming its commitment to the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights and established freedoms. And I'm gonna go right here. Just gonna hit a couple here. Whereas the Council of Bristol, Rhode Island recognizes and upholds the United States Constitution and its Bill of Rights and the Rhode Island Constitution, and the residents of Bristol cherish their political and civil rights and liberties based upon the Constitution and Bill of Rights, and full recognition is taken of the serious nature and current threats of the United States and its citizens, which prompt dynamic actions to defend ourselves and our way of life. And I'll leave it at that. But has been passed, there's like 7 municipalities: Bristol, Charlestown, Providence, I think it is, Middletown, New Shoreham, North Providence, and South Kingston. South Kingstown. There's like, I will put the link on this, and it's actually, I will put location, which is pages 357 to 356 to 359. I apologize for that, folks. Something you folks, a lot of people really need to know. This is essential to the Rhode Islanders. You got a lot more power than we think. And based on that, I take the initiative I was looking through. This came from the Firearm News, and it was out on May 22nd, 2019. Oh my god, what the hell is wrong with me? I'm like smacking myself up the head. I gotta admit, someone contacted me on the with a BitChute and said about me, my reading. It's probably, and I admit I have my bad days, and there are times I think too fast, and I do apologize for that, folks. And the whole goal is to put the message out, because so many people out there want to complain, don't want to take action. So I'm just giving you information on how to execute these things, your rights, your liberties. We're all got natural rights. It's that simple. So, but I will read this here. It says here, special report, a big 2-way history being made in Little Rhode Island. It came out May 22nd, 2019, an archive. Rhode Islanders are setting brush fires for freedom once again as they advance a Second Amendment sanctuary town movement. John Peterson wrote this. A field report conducted on scene by our news field editor, John Peterson, columnist for the on Guns, Freedom, and Vigilance column here in Firearms News Magazine. A brush fire for liberty has been spreading across Rhode Island. It does not take a majority to prevail, but irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires in the minds of men, said by founder Samuel Adams, is now coming back to life and in evidence over the past 4 weeks as a grassroots movement in defense of the Second Amendment has risen up in America's smallest state. Despite being buried deep in blue Democrat state, dominated New England, and long ago written off by some as one of the most anti-gun states, thousands of freedom-loving citizens in our 13th state have declared that enough is enough. Began mobilizing to fight back when I got word of this. I began making contact with leaders of the movement and have been there on the scene several times to witness their assertion of their Second Amendment rights firsthand. Americans should not be surprised at all with what is going on in Rhode Island over these past few weeks, as they were the first of the original 13 states to denounce the British Crown in what became the quest for independence and the American Revolution. A force of freedom in the American Revolution and times since. Now for some background. So, kick back, folks, chill, check it out. I'll be reading this. There's like a good amount of pages here. as it reads here, background that led to this movement. Following the 2017 Las Vegas, Nevada, and 2018 Parkland, Florida massacres and the subsequent nation-wide rash of a typical knee-jerk reactions and anti-civil libertarian opportunism by Democrats and other statists, Rhode Island's Democrats in the governor's mansion and state house joined other states in pushing for even more draconian and unreasonable gun control measures. Then earlier this year, their Governor Gina M. Raimondo and her Attorney General introduced a legislative package that included what they claimed to be gun safety reforms that included an assault weapons ban on high-capacity magazines, and prohibition on concealed carry. In the previous 2 years, she introduced legislation and pushed for various forms of gun control. Keep in mind that Raimondo is right out of central casting for statist Democrats, being an entirely New England Ivy League and Oxford-educated lawyer and lifelong liberal who is a member of both the Globalist Council on Foreign Relations and the Aspen Institute. So you could say Raimondo was a bend-over bard to the New World Order. This archive, I think, is great, you know. I'll continue on. She and those like her in no way can identify with the average gun owner, not to mention average citizen. Add to this the fact that many of these elected officials at the state level work lockstep with national level gun control organizations such as the Brady Center, receiving and using exact language that is shared with other states as part of a nationwide concerted effort to ban firearms from law-abiding citizens. And they conspire to do this and taking advantage of tragedy and emotion over reason. They completely ignore the empirical data and other undeniable evidence that such gun control does not work. They ignored the fact that gun control measures only punish the law-abiding, that it diminishes lawful self-defense and imposes oppressive, expensive, and unnecessary regulation on the wrong category of citizens, like Delaware, Vermont, and many other states that are seen as easy to fall dominoes by the Democrats. Rhode Island has been among the many states that the post-2017 gun control push has been claiming victim. Much of this due to the fact that Democrats see attempts at federal level gun control as mostly futile, especially now that the White House has reiterated that any gun control bills that pass the U.S. Congress will be dead on arrival via a promise of vetoes. Consequently, since the Las Vegas massacre, the focus on gun control has been at the state level, where this country has suffered the highest losses for firearm civil rights in over a decade. Over the past 18 or so months, this gun control push went too far, with many at the state level feeling the infringement to a point where it was too much. Of course, when the government knows best, it turns to crap, right? Historic first steps. As this onslaught of the new gun control action began again this year in Rhode Island, elected officials and citizens in many of small towns began to coordinate lawful opposition, inspired by similar actions, ongoing at least 8 other states. An effort towards having towns vote on a resolution to become Second Amendment sanctuary towns was set in motion. One of the key figures and catalysts of this movement is State Senator Elaine J. Morgan. Beginning with the towns that she represents, she has worked in concert with residents of the towns, plus others, in becoming a confederation called We the People of Rhode Island for a 2A sanctuary. There are 5 pro-gun firearms advocacy organizations in Rhode Island that I have identified, but this movement is a joint effort of everyone with no competition or rivalry. just unity and sense of purpose. What has resulted has been nothing short of magnificent and successful thus far. One by one, the towns of Rhode Island have been addressing the issue of unreasonable gun control, with residents who are part of the movement pushing their town councils to vote on a resolution to become a Second Amendment sanctuary. Citizens have literally swarmed to these meetings, and in increasing numbers. What I have observed firsthand is that town council meetings that usually only attract between 8 to 15 residents are now getting in upwards to 100 to 300 attendees. That's a good call. See, I like that. So much so that some of them have had to schedule the meetings to discuss the proposed 2A resolution at nearby school auditoriums and theaters just to be able to handle the crowds. One by one, the residents get in front of their elected town council members to testify about the resolution. Some of these speeches would warm the hearts of so many patriotic Americans. One was a World War II veteran who said that he doesn't do public appearances, so it takes something this important to get him to speak in public. Another who spoke to his council was only 12 years old. Between this and the sheer numbers of pro-gun attendees, I must say that this has been quite the sight to behold. Most of those in attendance are the second pro-gun residents, most wearing now trademark yellow shirts that the Second Amendment firearm civil rights groups in the state have been wearing as part of a peaceful protest at their state house in Providence and elsewhere. What the basic Second Amendment Sanctuary Town Resolution specifically speaks is to be a non-binding and highly symbolic message to the governor and state legislator that the town's residents oppose this unconstitutional gun control and that they reserve the option of not enforcing it if need be, primarily that enough is enough. However, this movement does not seek to subvert the rule of law. Considering that Rhode Island is one of the states which, like so many others, has so much gun control legislation in effect that does not truly curb crime, never addresses the root causes of interpersonal violence, and much of which is unenforceable and or not being properly enforced. They do not need any more gun laws on their books. Those laws have been historically proven not to work. So describe to you exactly what this Second Amendment Sanctuary Town movement and this proposed resolution is all about. Here it is. Here is it directly from Senator Morgan herself. This is what she says here. I work very hard for all my constituents and the district I represent on all issues. Not everyone is going to agree on every issue, and that is what makes America great and the country I am proud to be part of. I swore an oath when taking office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Rhode Island Constitution. I am upholding that oath. We are not looking to sidestep to ignore the laws that are on the books. We are simply sending a message that enough is enough. She adds that I have children in school and I'm extremely concerned for their safety. The laws the anti-2A groups are proposing in the General Assembly do nothing to keep our kids safe in schools. Being a 2A town will not change any existing law. This is simply a resolution. Recommended. Also an issue and of great concern to the towns is that enactment and enforcement of the new gun control laws will require the towns to spend funds on enforcement without support from the state. Any gunners in the state government have no plans to provide funds for enforcement of these new gun laws to the towns. Therefore, the towns will be forced to both self-fund enforcement and violate the Constitution of both their state and USA in doing so. This is a lose-lose end state for both the municipality and the law-abiding citizen. Furthermore, enforcement of such laws would additionally put the local law enforcement agencies in any of a series of very difficult situations. This could include bearing the very expensive lawsuits from those arrested and prosecuted, which could potentially cost those towns hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in both legal fees and compensatory damages. And, as has been the case in so many other states, these unreasonable and unconstitutional gun control measures will certainly invite lawsuits from national-level firearms advocacy groups, most of which have been very successful and expensive. As the movement spreads across the state, either of two general courses of action has been taken at the regularly scheduled town council meetings. Either A, the town votes yea or nay on the resolution to become a Second Amendment sanctuary town, or B, they motion to discuss it further, possibly devising their own version of this or some other forms of opposition. In addition to those already voting, a number are adding this to their agenda to discuss. On Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, the small town of Burryville, Rhode Island, made history when its town council voted unanimously 5-0 to become a Second Amendment sanctuary town. This included supporting their police department's rights to use sound discretion when enforcing state firearms. Burryville Town Council Donald Fox was quoted as saying, "Burryville does not have a history of gun violence. We refuse to become a pawn in the polarized debate about gun violence that has drawn half-truths from advocates on both sides." He went on to express their concern that the proposed and pending legislation will infringe upon the constitutional rights of their citizens. Then, in rapid succession, other towns began taking up this issue. As of Wednesday night, May 15th, 100% of the towns in Rhode Island that took up a town council vote voted in favor of the resolution and became Second Amendment sanctuary towns. These include Burryville, Hopkinton, Foster, West Greenwich, and Richmond. Hopkinton was named for signer of the Declaration of Independence, Stephen Hopkins. You could feel the excitement in the air as the citizens spoke at the town meeting and as we waited in a large crowd outside for the vote. At press time, 11 additional towns in Rhode Island have either taken up the issue on their agenda or are considering doing so, or have citizens moving towards it. As of this writing, 4 more towns have scheduled votes that will begin to occur as this is published. Gun-owning residents of a number of towns are asking that the town take a vote, with many getting involved. The movement is working with residents to articulate to their elected officials when they aim to do in defense of their rights, as well as clarify the proposed resolution. Most of the towns are in the northern and western portions of the state. The movement is now moving towards the suburbs and larger cities. A contact list of gun-owning citizens was approaching 3,900 in number as of May 19th and counting. Oops, sorry about that. Pretty cool, right? Let me just see here. It looks like I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that, folks. Historic first step. Boom, 3,900. Where are you, baby? Oh, recommended, of course. I'm just sorry about that. It's just one of those things that occur. Hit that button and bam, right? Okay, cool. However, there has been a significant amount of misreporting about the movement, as well as erroneous information being spread about, much of it at the hands of the anti-civil libertarian pro-gun control elements. Most of the national level reporting has been aggregated from some of the city and state papers and TV stations, most of whom only sent a photographer to witness the event for a few minutes, then leaving. The same goes true for the anti-gunners, who have not shown up in any significant numbers for any of the town council meetings that have votes. Thus far, the only state or regional level media professional to be seen at the town council meetings has been radio show host, media professional Daniel J. Bendoni Jr., truthradio.com, who has been doing video of the events, live streaming of the meetings. It has been conducted for all to be seen by residents. A new Facebook page has been set up that will live stream future town council meetings that address the Second Amendment, which can be found at We the People's People's page, personal blog. Hope it may be still up. I don't know. It came out in 2019. Seeing the citizenry in action, speaking in defense of their rights, has been exciting and effective, to say the least. The only national level journalist that has been regularly attending the council meetings and votes is myself. I have also been allowed inside look of the movement's leadership made private to their strategy and planning. I have deployed to Rhode Island 3 times so far for these meetings and will be back for more of this historic action as the movement continues to pick up steam. What everyone can see very clearly within this movement and at the town council meeting since April is now civilized, decent, and professional the pro-Second Amendment Rhode Islanders have been. They are not rowdy or boisterous at the meetings. The unity and calm, respectful of conduct of the yellow shirt pro-gun movement brings great credit upon the cause and is winning the respect of the other residents. Always say, utilize their language, use decorum, folks. And some of the ones who may not like it, bite their tongue. Deal with it. I know for a fact. I can tell you that. One who I met in Foster was not involved at all in his gun rights until this movement began. He was very impressed with how it has been working and went up to the organizers wanting to know how to get more involved in order to get one of the yellow shirts. This is happening all over the state. People are waking up to the alarm of renewed gun control tyranny. The movement is winning over citizens by being reasonable and professional, without the need to raise voices or point fingers. It is about civil rights and fighting inept, unworkable bureaucracy being forced upon them. New Englanders have a several centuries of old tradition of fighting back and winning. By comparison, I am a long time and life member of Gun Owners of New Hampshire. Back when I first joined them in the 1990s, we had a diehard Second Amendment supporter by the name of U.S. Senator Bob Smith, Republican from New Hampshire, fighting for us along with numerous staunch advocates at the state level. This was during the dark days of the assault weapons ban, the Clinton era, and the numerous anti-gun frivolous lawsuits against the gun companies, 2 of which I worked for at the time. GONH members and activists were one rowdy, fired-up bunch. They would zero in on and expose the hypocrisy and treachery of any and all anti-gunners in the legislature and towns, often by embarrassing them. But that is a different environment up there in the mostly pro-gun, live free or die state. In Rhode Island, liberty-loving citizens have a much tougher fight on their hands. The methodology and strategy of the pro-Second Amendment movement in Rhode Island is one that other states should consider duplicating, especially the blue states. Adding to this is something else that says a lot about this 2A movement in Rhode Island. During the town council meetings and peaceful rallies held outside of them, the movement organizers have been busily asking for donations for charity. Self-defense training outfit called Rhode Island Patriots, there's a Facebook page for that, has been at these events conducting a food drive for veterans in need, as well as collecting donations for a military veterans charity called Operation Stand Down Rhode Island. As the leader of the RI Patriots told me, it is win-win for veterans no matter how the town council's votes on the 2A go. With anywhere from 100 to 300 people showing up for the town council meetings, there is a great opportunity to bring in donations. I witnessed as they loaded up a large table and truck full of non-perishable foods at two of the events. Then, when a local firefighter lost his home to a fire, the Rhode Island 2A Sanctuary Town movement swung into action, leveraging their ability to gather large crowds of good citizens to ask for donations. Sure enough, on the very first night of this call out for assistance, a list of needed hard items plus quite a stack of cash was collected to give to that family. That just goes to show you the type of good people that are involved in the Second Amendment and firearms communities in Rhode Island. Americans at their best. By contrast, at these meetings, I have not seen the anti-gunners doing anything at all for charity. They all seem to be bitter, unfriendly, unapproachable, one-sided, and uninterested in anything but their twisted agenda. I want the world to revolve around me, metaphorically speaking, right? Upon further investigation of who and what these anti-gunners and those opposed to the 2A resolutions were, I discovered that there were two non-residents of the town who are anti-gun showing up at the meetings and attempting to speak against the resolution. One case, a woman made a speech to a town council meeting that appeared to be a scripted speech, loaded with some talking points, false narratives, and cooked-up statistics that are fed to state-level anti-gun, pro-gun control groups by national-level groups such as the Brady Center in Washington, D.C. Consequently, in visiting the town council meetings in Rhode Island, I have learned something else that might be of interest to all pro-gun and liberty-loving citizens. After a detailed analysis of meetings, something very curious and telltale that I observed after attending several meetings and seeing the live stream video of the others. I observed that some of the town council members who are opposed to the resolution, and so far all of those speaking up against the resolution at the meetings, had one very telltale thing in common. They stated at the beginning of the remarks that they were either pro-Second Amendment, I believe in the right to keep and bear arms, I'm not against people owning guns, and other purported claims for support of gun rights, followed by the either word but or a litany of typical false narratives, erroneous information, or twisted logic that we have seen coming from gun control lobbyists for decades. Absolutely. When I hear that, I go, beaker alert, me, 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 me. Absolutely right. So think about that. During their speeches, some simply displayed a complete lack of factual knowledge and understanding of the issues. Some were obviously using the typical language propagated by anti-gun, mostly Democrat Party entities who advocate gun control. Some were statements straight from the websites of a very particular list of state and national level gun control groups. Same language, some seemed very intelligent and maybe even meant well. However, it was obvious that at least one was drawing content directly from the anti-gunners and reading from the script, as most of them do. So my advice to all liberty-loving Americans regarding their firearm civil rights is this: do not trust and always be aware of those who claim to be pro-Second Amendment but then attempt to advocate any form of gun control at all. The dead giveaway is that preface of support by gun rights in combination with the standard talking points employed by gun control groups and the Democrat Party. Thus far, anti-gunners have not been able to mount an effective resistance to this historic movement. Though police, fire trucks, and ambulances are stationed at the town meetings, there has been no strife or unrest. Anti-gunners show up with about a dozen of their operatives at a town meeting of the province suburb of Cranston to push for a gun control measure on May 16th. This proposal was obviously spawned at the same initiative that the governor has called for, and we learned was done to counter the Second Amendment sanctuary towns movement. But the anti-gunners were outnumbered about 4-1 or more by the liberty-loving yellow shirts at the town meeting. The anti-gun measures completely failed. This anti-gun contingent was from Rhode Island Moms Demand Action Group, which is affiliated with the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, usually wearing red shirts, sometimes orange in other states. They show up at the town council meeting of Richmond and later at Cranston. Yeah, red shirt. Communist fist, baby, yeah! I'm all Marxonian. Okay, I'll continue on here. They are purported to be funded at the national and global level by virulent anti-gun, pro-status billionaire Michael Bloomberg, which he's a CFR member, by the way, and other subversive anti-constitutionalist groups. So far, they have not been able to muster up enough support, despite receiving substantial out-of-state funding. The RI2A Sanctuary Towns movement has been operating without any financial support at all, entirely grassroots by and for the citizens, as it should be. Other Rhode Island towns are either delaying a vote on or considering other forms of action. Residents who want to defend their constitutional rights are showing up in droves at the town meetings. One town council president remarked that they are lucky to get 8 or 10 people to a meeting. Now they are with 10 to 30 times that many. There is no doubt that the fight to defend the Second Amendment is on the move in Little Rhode, as they love to call themselves, and in getting to know all the leaders of the movement and the affiliated groups, even spending hours one night at an informal get-together discussing our rights and watching training videos. I can attest that these are some of the finest citizens that I have met in my travels. This is especially considering that I have the honor of having given self-defense firearms training to thousands of both citizens and law enforcement from all 50 states. They are a class act in Rhode Island, and they are on the move in defense of civil liberties. Why is it important for all Americans? As I drove around Rhode Island these past few weeks, it was a living history lesson. In addition to being the first colony to step up to the plate. Good grief. Sorry about that. With resistance to the British Crown, Rhode Island has been there as a leader and pioneer in so many ways. While in Forster, they had those funny New England accents, Forster, and neighboring Situate, I learned that back when both towns were combined as one, signer of the Declaration of Independence, Stephen Hopkins, has been born there 312 years earlier. Everywhere you go, you see stone walls and restored homes dating back to the colonial era of the 1600s and 1700s. The town crest of one of the towns that violated for the resolution contains the image of firearms and reference to the Second Amendment. And most people do not know that the first president of the first civil rights organization in the U.S., the National Rifle Association, was a gunsmith turned Union Army officer in the Civil War, General Ambrose Burnside. Think about that. He started, one of the main guys who started, first president for the National Rifle Association. Every time that our country was in its hours of need or needed, somehow, someone showed the way. Rhode Islanders have been there. and less than 50 miles north of where the Second Amendment sanctuary town movement in Rhode Island began, and this is the Old North Bridge in Concord, Massachusetts, where on April 19, 1775, citizens from small towns dropped what they were doing and answered the calls as the British marched on their communities to confiscate their firearms and capture their leaders. On the centennial of the shot heard around the world, poet Ralph Waldo Emerson stood near the bridge and read something that is now chiseled in stone on a walkway at the entrance to this historic site. He said something which applies to what we are seeing unfold in the small towns of Rhode Island, as well as in the growing number of little towns, counties, and states across the land now, as it did back then, and that all freedom-loving Americans fed up with these tyrannical gun control attempts and other statism should keep in mind for the fight ahead, when Emerson said, "The thunderbolt falls on an inch of ground, but the light of it fills the horizon." Furthermore, it is significant and worth noting that back then, it was not large cities, but the small towns in what is now a comparatively small state. The Massachusetts Bay Colony rose up, whose bold acts are now immortalized as history, known around the world. The core inspiration for success that followed, and that during these past 4 weeks in this little state, literally our smallest in land area, and whose motto for over 300 years has been hope, who led the way during the American Revolution as the first to resist. Now behold, these Rhode Island Patriots are leading the way once again. If they can do it, especially in a heavy blue state, Democrat-controlled state and region, then you can do that. You can do it. There's no reason why you cannot do it in your state. All liberty-loving Americans need to follow their lead, follow their example as liberty-loving Rhode Island Patriots make history again. Farm News Magazine will continue to be on the scene to report of this historic movement as it spreads and more communities step up to assert their rights. These are exciting times, and the entire nation will be watching. Godspeed to these great Americans in Rhode Island and their quest to protect our inalienable rights. What can I say? I find this very historical indeed, even though it's 2019, it's relevant today. The solution is, my friends, think and act locally. Be inspired, not hired. I remember when I did rallies for Ron Paul, we all said we're inspired, not someone says be inspired, the rest is not hired. That's the mindset that needs to be ascertained. Don't complain. Take action. And that's why we have these sanctuary towns, Second Amendment sanctuary towns, those assault weapon bans, so-called assault weapon bans, are null and void. It's in their state constitution, Patriot Act resolutions of those 7 municipalities, and even the sanctuary towns. Always remain vigilant, my friends. They can never take your rights away. You can never change or alter them, but governments can. We got the power. They don't. They are nothing without us. Plain and simple, with no exceptions. Well, that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, and all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. You can hit me via email to ll3-podcast@proton.me. I will leave the links of this episode on the page. It'll be mainly on Podbean, but other sites as well. And if you want to donate, go to paypal.me or cash.app/look3. You can give me a little crypto love and follow me at Steemit at LL3-Podcast. If you want to support firearms news, that would be cool. All right, my friends, that is all. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Till next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.